I stood in the middle of my grandmother's funeral reception, holding a champagne flute I hadn't touched when my mother Clarissa announced to the entire room that she'd just transferred the inheritance money meant for my art studio into Blair's influencer management account. She said it so casually, like she was commenting on the weather. The room fell silent. My hand started shaking so violently that champagne sloshed over the rim and onto my black dress. That was the moment I realised I'd been drowning for 28 years and I'd just been too polite to scream for help. But I'm getting ahead of myself. If you're watching this because you've ever felt invisible in your own family, if you've ever wondered why you're always the one who has to sacrifice while someone else gets everything handed to them, then stay with me. This story gets worse before it gets better, but I promise you, it gets so much better. And if my journey helps even one person find the courage to stop being a doormat, then please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment telling me your story. You're not alone. I learned that the hard way. Let me take you back to where this really started. 6 months before that funeral, I was living in a tiny studio apartment in Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood, surrounded by half-finished art pieces and the smell of acrylic paint. I'd been building my custom furniture restoration business, Pandora's Box Designs, for 3 years. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Every salvaged dresser I transformed, every vintage chair I reupholstered, felt like proof that I could create something beautiful from something broken. Looking back now, I wonder if I was trying to fix myself through furniture. My family lived in a sprawling craftsman house in Queen Anne that actually belonged to my grandfather Edmund. My parents, Clarissa and Rowan, had been living there rent-free for 15 years. My younger sister Blair, 23 at the time, had moved back home after dropping out of college to pursue her dream of becoming a lifestyle influencer. While I worked 60-hour weeks refinishing and antiquing antique tables, Blair spent her days staging photo shoots in our childhood bedroom and complaining about how hard it was to maintain her Instagram aesthetic. The dynamic had always been clear. Blair was the golden child, the beautiful one, the one with potential. I was the responsible one, the serious one, the one who didn't need attention. My mother had been drilling this into me since Blair was born. When Blair was 5 and I was 10, my mother sat me down and explained that Blair was special, that she needed extra support, extra love, extra everything. My job, she said, was to be understanding, to be the bigger person, to not make waves. So I didn't make waves. When Blair borrowed my car and returned it with an empty gas tank and a new dent, I didn't make waves. When my mother asked to borrow money and never paid it back, I didn't make waves. When Blair posted photos on Instagram wearing my custom-made leather jacket and claimed she'd designed it herself, I didn't make waves. I was so good at not making waves that I was practically drowning in silence. The BMW incident happened on a Thursday night in February. Seattle was experiencing one of those rare snowstorms that shut down the entire city. I'd been working for 2 weeks straight on a massive order for a client who was furnishing a new boutique hotel downtown. The contract was worth $10,000, enough to cover 3 months of rent and finally get my business out of the red. The pieces were delicate, hand-painted vintage vanities that I'd spent weeks restoring. They were supposed to be delivered the next morning. I'd stored the most fragile pieces in my car, a BMW 3 Series that my grandfather had given me for my college graduation. It was 7 years old but still ran perfectly and, more importantly, it was mine. Or so I thought. I'd parked it in the garage behind my studio, planning to load the last few items in the morning. But when I went out to double-check everything at 11 that night, my heart stopped. The garage was empty. The car was gone. My first thought was that it had been stolen. My second thought was that I was ruined. Those vanities in the trunk were irreplaceable. I'd lose the contract, my reputation, everything. I was already reaching for my phone to call the police when I remembered the GPS tracking app I'd installed after Blair borrowed the car last year and forgot where she'd parked it for 3 days. I pulled up the app with shaking fingers. The car wasn't stolen. It was at a nightclub called Quantum in downtown Seattle, one of those places where bottle service starts at $500 and the velvet rope is patrolled by guys who look like they bench press refrigerators for fun. I knew immediately. Blair. It had to be Blair. She was the only other person who had a spare key which my mother had insisted I give her for emergencies. Apparently, her idea of an emergency was very different from mine. I didn't have money for an Uber, so I took the bus, then ran the last 6 blocks through the snow. By the time I reached Quantum, I was soaked and furious. The bouncer tried to stop me, but I pushed past him into a wall of heat and bass-heavy music that made my teeth vibrate. The club was packed with people who all seemed to be filming themselves having fun rather than actually having it. I found Blair near the VIP section, and what I saw made my blood boil. She was standing next to my BMW, which she'd somehow convinced someone to let her park inside the club as a prop. The car was spotlit, surrounded by her influencer friends, all of them posing against it, while Blair stood in front filming a live stream on her phone. She was wearing a tight gold dress and holding a champagne bottle, gesturing at the car like a game show host. I could hear her over the music, her voice bright and performative. So yeah, guys, this is my new baby. Well, technically, it's a hand-me-down from my grandpa, but I just picked it up today. Isn't she gorgeous? I'm thinking of getting it wrapped in rose gold. What do you think? Drop a comment. My new baby. My car. The car I'd been making payments on for insurance and maintenance for 7 years. The car she'd stolen out of my garage. The car that currently had $10,000 worth of fragile antiques in the trunk. I pushed through the crowd. Blair. She looked up, and for a split second I saw annoyance flash across her face before she rearranged it into her Instagram smile. "Oh my God, Panda, what are you doing here? You look like a drowned rat." She laughed, and her friends laughed with her. I could see myself in her phone screen in the live stream. Wet hair, plastered to my head-old coat, no makeup. Next to Blair, in her gold dress, I looked like the before picture in a makeover show. "I need the car back," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "Right now. Babe, I'm literally in the middle of content creation." She waved her phone at me. "Can this wait?" "No, it can't wait. You took my car without asking, and I have a delivery in the morning." "Our car," she corrected, her smile getting tighter. "Grandpa gave it to the family. He gave it to me. For graduation. It's in my name, Blair." Something shifted in her expression. The smile vanished. "Are you seriously going to do this right now, in front of my followers? Give me the keys." "Oh my God, you're so embarrassing." She turned back to her phone, her voice shifting back to that bright fake tone. "Sorry guys, my sister is having a moment. She's always been super jealous of me. It's kind of sad, actually." I heard the comments starting to roll in on her live stream, people calling me names, telling me to leave her alone. I didn't care anymore. I reached for the car keys in her hand. She jerked back, and that's when it happened. In her dramatic movement away from me, she knocked into my shoulder, and the small box I'd been carrying under my arm, the box containing the sample piece I'd brought to show a potential new client tomorrow, flew out of my grip. It hit the ground with a sickening crash. I heard glass shattering inside. The club music seemed to get louder. I dropped to my knees and opened the box with shaking hands. The hand-painted mirror I'd spent 3 days restoring was destroyed. Shards of antique glass glittered under the club lights like broken stars. Blair looked down at the mess and she laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh, no, your little craft project? I'm sorry, Panda, but you need to relax. It's just some cheap thrift store junk. You can make another one." I looked up at her, at this person who shared my DNA but felt like a complete stranger. Behind her, her phone was still recording, capturing this moment for thousands of people who didn't know me, didn't care about me, and were probably already commenting about what a psycho I was. "Get out of my way," I said quietly. I stood up, walked past her to the car and tried the door. Locked. I turned back to her. "Keys, now." "I don't think so." She crossed her arms. "Not until you apologize for ruining my live stream." I could have screamed. I could have grabbed her and shaken her. Instead, I did something I'd never done before. I pulled out my phone and called my mother. She answered on the 3rd ring, her voice irritated. "Pandora, it's almost midnight. Blair stole my car. I'm at Quantum nightclub. She won't give me the keys back, and I have a $10,000 delivery tomorrow morning." There was a long pause. Then my mother sighed, that deep, disappointed sigh I knew so well. Why are you always starting drama? Can't you just let your sister have one nice thing? Mum, she took my car without permission. It's a family car. Your grandfather gave it to all of us. That's not true. It's registered in my name. I pay the insurance. Well, Blair needed it for her content. You know how important her career is. Can't you just take the bus tomorrow? I hung up. I actually hung up on my mother for the first time in my life. Then I called an Uber with money I didn't have, went home and spent the rest of the night frantically trying to redo the broken piece. I didn't sleep. By 6 a.m, I'd created something that was maybe 70% as good as the original. It would have to do. But when I went to get my portfolio samples for the client meeting, I realised Blair still had my car. I called her 15 times. She didn't answer. I called my mother. She told me to stop harassing Blair. I ended up taking 3 buses to the client meeting, arriving sweaty and 45 minutes late with a subpar sample. The client took one look at me and said they were going with someone else. $10,000 gone, just like that. Blair returned the car at 8 that evening, pulling into my studio's parking lot with a screech of brakes. I ran outside to find her already getting into an Uber. The BMW had a massive dent in the front bumper and a long scrape down the passenger side. "What happened to my car?" I shouted. She looked at me through the Uber window, her expression bored. "I bumped into a pole leaving the club. Chill out, insurance will cover it. Oh, and you're welcome for the exposure. My live stream got 50,000 views. You should be thanking me." Then she rolled up the window and the Uber drove away. The insurance claim was denied because the car was being driven by someone not listed on my policy. The repairs were quoted at $3,000. I had $400 in my bank account. I drove home that night in a damaged car, crying so hard I had to pull over twice. When I finally got to my apartment, there was an eviction notice taped to my door. My rent check had bounced. I called the bank and discovered my account had been overdrawn. Someone had written several large checks against the joint account I'd set up with my mother years ago, back when she'd convinced me it would be easier for family financial planning. I called her. Again. This time she answered with exasperation already in her voice. "Mum, did you write checks on our joint account?" "Oh, that. Yes. Blair needed some things for her setup. New camera equipment, a lighting rig, some outfits for content creation. It's an investment." "That was my rent money." "Don't be dramatic. Just put it on a credit card for now. You'll get paid eventually." "I don't have room on my credit cards." "Well, that sounds like a you problem, Pandora. Maybe if you were better at managing money, you wouldn't be in this situation." She hung up. I sat on the floor of my apartment looking at the eviction notice, and something inside me just broke. Not broke like shattered glass. Broke like something that had been bent too far for too long, finally snapping back into its original shape. I drove to my parents' house. It was almost 10 at night, but I didn't care. I used my old key and walked in to find a family meeting already in progress in the dining room. My mother, my father and Blair, all sitting around the table covered with papers. They looked up when I walked in. My mother's face immediately hardened. "We're in the middle of something," she said. "I need to talk to you about the money you took from my account." "Lower your voice. This is a civilized household." "You stole my rent money." "My father." Rowan shifted uncomfortably in his chair but said nothing. He never said anything. In 28 years, I'd never once heard him stand up to my mother. Clarissa stood up, her face flushed. "And I did not steal anything. That was a joint account. Joint means shared. Maybe you should look up the definition." "You didn't ask. You didn't tell me. My rent check bounced. I'm being evicted." "Oh, stop being so dramatic. You're not being evicted. Just talk to your landlord." I tried. He said I have 3 days to pay or I'm out. Blair looked up from her phone for the first time. "God, Pandora, why are you always having money problems? Maybe if you got a real job instead of playing with furniture." Something in my chest went cold and hard. "Playing with furniture," I repeated. "I've been working 60-hour weeks for 3 years to build a business." "And how's that going for you?" Blair smirked. Wait, you're about to be homeless." "So not great." My mother sat back down, shuffling the papers in front of her. "Actually, Pandora, since you're here, there's something we need to discuss. Blair's influencer career is really taking off, but she needs capital to scale. We're applying for a business loan, and we need a co-signer with good credit. She slid a stack of papers across the table toward me. I looked down at them. Loan application. Amount requested $50,000. Co-signer signature line highlighted in yellow. You want me to co-sign a loan for Blair's Instagram? It's not Instagram. It's a multimedia personal brand with multiple revenue streams, Blair said, rolling her eyes. No, I said. The word felt foreign in my mouth. I'd said yes so many times to so many things that no felt like speaking a different language. My mother's eyes narrowed. Excuse me. No, I'm not co-signing. Don't be selfish. This is your sister's future we're talking about. What about my future? What about my business? Your business is a hobby. Blair has real potential. You know how important it is to support family. I've been supporting this family my entire life. The words burst out of me louder than I intended. I paid for Blair's senior trip when you said you couldn't afford it. I helped with Dad's dental work. I've loaned you thousands of dollars that you've never paid back. When does it stop? It stops when you stop being ungrateful, my mother snapped. Everything we've done has been for you kids. The sacrifice we've made raising 2 daughters, and this is the thanks we get. I looked at my father. He was staring at his hands. Dad, I said, say something. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Then quietly, maybe you could just help out this one time, honey, for family harmony. Something inside me died in that moment, not dramatically, just a quiet little death of the last bit of hope I'd been carrying that maybe someday someone in this family would choose me. I'm leaving, I said. You can't just leave in the middle of a conversation, my mother called after me. But I did. I walked out, got in my damaged car, and drove back to my apartment. I spent that night applying for personal loans, emergency credit cards, anything to cover rent. Everything was denied. My credit score, I discovered, had tanked. There were 3 credit cards opened in my name that I'd never applied for, all maxed out, all with late payments. I knew before I even called the credit bureaus what had happened. My mother had committed identity theft. My own mother had stolen my identity, opened credit cards in my name, and destroyed my credit score to fund Blair's lifestyle. The next morning, I went to my grandfather's house. Edmund was 82, a retired real estate developer who'd built most of the commercial properties in Pioneer Square back in the 80s. He'd always been kind to me in a distant way, the way rich old men are kind to grandchildren they see twice a year. I showed him everything: the eviction notice, the credit report, bank statements showing the money my mother had taken, screenshots of Blair's live stream with my car, photos of the damage, the denied insurance claim. He listened without interrupting, his face getting harder with each piece of evidence. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. Then he picked up his phone and made a call. Gerald, it's Edmund. I need you at my house in an hour. Bring the contracts for the Queen Anne property and your litigation kit. He hung up and looked at me. Gerald Stone, best lawyer in Seattle. He's expensive, but he's vicious. You're going to need vicious. Grandpa, I can't afford. I'll handle it. This ends now. 2 weeks later, Blair's 24th birthday party was in full swing at my parents' house. The place was packed with influencers, cameras everywhere, a catering company serving expensive appetizers. My mother had spared no expense, all of it, probably on credit cards in my name. I arrived with my grandfather. My mother's face went pale when she saw us walk in together. Dad, he said, forcing a smile. What a surprise. Pandora, I didn't think you'd come. We need to talk, Edmund said. All of you, dining room, now. It wasn't a request. Something in his tone made even Blair put down her phone. We gathered in the dining room along with Gerald Stone, who'd followed us in carrying a briefcase. The party continued in the living room, music thumping through the walls. Edmund didn't waste time. Clarissa, you've been living in my house rent-free for 15 years. That ends today. You have 30 days to vacate. My mother's face went white, then red. You can't do that. This is our home. It's my home. I own it. I've allowed you to live here out of generosity, but that generosity has reached its limit. He nodded at Gerald, who pulled out a stack of papers. These are eviction proceedings, Gerald said in a flat professional tone. Legal and binding. You'll also find a cease and desist regarding the identity theft and credit fraud committed against Pandora Montgomery. Identity theft, my mother's voice went shrill. That's absurd. I'm her mother. I was helping her build credit. By opening cards in her name without permission, maxing them out, and never making payments. Gerald raised an eyebrow. That's textbook identity theft. It's also a federal crime. Blair looked between them, her face confused. What's happening? What's happening, Edmund said, turning to her, is that you and your mother have been committing financial abuse and fraud. The BMW you've been claiming as yours, it was a gift to Pandora titled in her name. You stole it, damaged it, and committed insurance fraud by filing a claim under false pretenses. I didn't. We have video evidence, your own live stream, actually. Gerald smiled, and it wasn't pleasant. You documented your own crime, made our job easier. My father finally spoke, his voice weak. Dad, please, can't we talk about this? We are talking about it, Rowan. And here's what's going to happen. The house will be sold. Proceeds will go to repaying the money stolen from Pandora with interest. The rest goes into a trust for Pandora's business. Blair will return all items purchased with stolen funds or face criminal charges. And Clarissa will either agree to a payment plan for the identity theft or deal with federal prosecutors. My mother's face had gone from red to purple. You can't do this to your own family. You did this to yourselves. Edmund's voice was cold. You took advantage of someone who only wanted to be loved by you. That ends now. Blair started crying, the ugly kind of crying where mascara runs and snot flows. This is all Pandora's fault. She's always been jealous of me. She's turning Grandpa against us. I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no guilt. Just nothing. I am not jealous of you, Blair, I said quietly. I pity you. You're 24 years old and you have no real skills, no education, no idea how to survive without someone else paying your way. Mom's been enabling you your whole life and it's destroyed you. How dare you? I dare, because I'm done. I'm done being the responsible one. I'm done sacrificing. I'm done making myself small so you can feel big. I'm done. My mother stood up shaking. If you do this, you are dead to me. Dead. You'll never be welcome in this family again. Good, I said, and I meant it. The legal process took months. My parents had to sell the house. My mother screamed at me through lawyers. Blair's influencer sponsors dropped her when the fraud story broke. Her followers turned on her when someone leaked the full live stream footage showing her laughing at my broken art piece. The internet can be cruel, but sometimes that cruelty is directed at people who deserve it. My grandfather set up a trust fund for my business and helped me find a new studio space. A beautiful converted warehouse in Georgetown with huge windows and room to grow. He also funded my credit repair and helped me sue my mother in civil court. We won. She declared bankruptcy, which meant I'd never see most of that money. But it didn't matter. It wasn't about the money anymore. My father called me once, about 3 months after everything went down. Your mother's very hurt, he said. She should be in jail, I replied. She committed multiple felonies. Can't you just forgive her? She's family. No, I said. I can't, and I won't. Then I hung up and blocked his number. 6 months after my grandmother's funeral, the one where this all started, I was standing in my new studio. It was 3 times the size of my old place with professional equipment, a full workshop, and a small showroom. I just signed a contract with a boutique hotel chain for ongoing custom pieces. My business was profitable for the first time. My credit score had recovered to the 700s. I was sleeping through the night. My phone buzzed, unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me. Hello? Panda, Blair's voice small and scared. It's me. I hadn't heard from her since the eviction. How did you get this number? I found it. Look, I'm in trouble. Mum and I got evicted from the apartment we were renting. We have nowhere to go. I thought maybe you could help. Just a loan, a small one. I'll pay you back, I swear. I looked around my beautiful new studio at the life I'd built from the ashes of my old one. No, I said. Please, Panda, I'm your sister. You can't just abandon family. You're right, I said. I can't abandon family. That's why I'm still in contact with Grandpa. He's the only family I have. You're really going to do this? Leave me homeless? You're not homeless because of me, Blair. You're homeless because you never learned that actions have consequences. Because Mum taught you that you could take whatever you wanted and someone else would clean up the mess. I'm not cleaning up your messes anymore. I could die out here. Then I suggest you get a job, like the rest of us. I hung up. She tried calling back 17 times. I blocked the number. Then I blocked my mother's number when she tried too. Then my father's. I stood there in my studio surrounded by the furniture I'd restored, the beautiful broken things I'd made whole again. And I realised something. I'd spent my whole life trying to fix broken things because I felt broken myself. But I wasn't broken. I'd just been with people who needed me to believe I was so they could keep using me. A year later, my business had expanded. I had 3 employees, a waiting list of clients, and a feature in Architectural Digest. My grandfather came to the opening of my first retail location and told me he was proud of me. It was the first time anyone in my family had said that. I dated someone briefly, a kind man who worked in tech. It didn't work out, but it was healthy and respectful, and when it ended, we parted as friends. I was learning what healthy relationships looked like. It was harder than I expected, unlearning all those patterns, but I was doing it. I heard through mutual acquaintances that my mother and Blair were living in Tacoma sharing a 1-bedroom apartment. Blair had gotten a job at Nordstrom. My mother was working at a call centre. I felt nothing when I heard this. Not satisfaction, not guilt, not sadness. Just nothing. They were strangers to me now. My grandfather passed away when I was 31. He left me the majority of his estate, including several commercial properties. My mother contested the will, of course. She lost. At his funeral, my mother tried to approach me. I walked away. Blair tried to corner me by the parking lot, crying about how much she'd changed, how much she needed me. I got in my car and drove away. I own the converted warehouse, now the one where my studio is. I live in the apartment above it, a space I designed myself with exposed brick and huge windows that let in the Seattle rain light I've grown to love. Every piece of furniture in it is something I made or restored. Every inch of it is mine, earned by me, protected by me. People sometimes ask me if I regret cutting off my family. They frame it like I did something wrong, like I'm the one who broke something that can't be fixed. But here's what I learned: you can't break something that was never whole. My family wasn't a family. It was a hierarchy where I existed at the bottom, a resource to be mined until I was empty. Walking away wasn't breaking the family. It was freeing myself from the wreckage. I'm 33 now. I have a small circle of friends who treat me with respect. I have a business I'm proud of. I have a life that's mine. Some nights, I still have moments where I wonder if I'm being selfish, if I should reach out, if maybe they have changed. Those moments pass. I've learnt to recognize them for what they are. The voice of the person I used to be, the one who thought her worth was measured by how much she could sacrifice. That person doesn't live here anymore. If you're watching this and you see yourself in my story, if you've been making excuses for people who treat you like a doormat, if you've been waiting for someone to choose you, who never will let me tell you something you have to choose yourself, no one else is going to do it for you. It's terrifying. Walking away from family, from people who are supposed to love you, it feels like stepping off a cliff. But sometimes the cliff is actually ground level, and you've just been standing in a hole for so long, you forgot what solid ground feels like. Choose yourself. Set boundaries. Walk away if you have to. You are not obligated to light yourself on fire to keep someone else warm, even if they're family. Especially if they're family. So here's my question for you. What would your life look like if you stopped accepting crumbs and started demanding the full meal? What would change if you believed you deserved better? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if this story resonated with you, if it gave you even a tiny bit of courage to stand up for yourself, please hit that like button and subscribe. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. You deserve people who celebrate you, not people who use you. Remember that. Until next time. This is Pandora reminding you that sometimes the best revenge is building a life so good that you forget why you wanted revenge in the first place.